Hello, very good afternoon. I'm Duncan, Chief Executive of the Jubilee Sailing Trust. The Jubilee Sailing Trust is a completely unique organisation. We own and operate two amazing tall ships, Lord Nelson and Tenacious, that have been purpose-built to take a crew of all ages, backgrounds and abilities all around the world. It's a completely unique organisation. We do this with four outcomes in mind. The first is about strengthening individual capabilities. The second is providing opportunity to some of the most marginalised in society. So we routinely operate with people who might be isolated through socioeconomic circumstance or disability or for other reasons. We use the powerful shared experience of sailing these ships to bring people together and to break down barriers between different groups. And we also use them to showcase what's possible. We really are a flagship for social inclusion.
I really enjoyed my time on the ship because I was on the Lord Nelson for one of its recent voyages, and had an amazing time. So much so that now my screensaver on my phone and my laptop is like scenes from the Night Watch, because it's something you'd never think you'd get an opportunity to try. I think my dad is incredibly jealous that I've done this, but it's an amazing experience and one that I would recommend to anyone anywhere really. Whether they sort of need pulling out of themselves or not. I think it's an amazing opportunity and a great experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely bonkers idea in many senses, and the founders of the trust had real vision and creativity to think of the idea, to think of this notion of a ship where everyone, irrespective of who they are and their background, their ability, typically half our crew has some sort of disability. The idea of getting such a diverse group of people together and setting them on a venture, and then to do it on a giant ship. I mean, it's kind of crazy but brilliant. And as you say, the impact of what we do is really significant. It's a disruptive experience. It takes people out of the routine of their life. It challenges them to do things they never thought possible. So during a typical day, like you might be on night watch at 4 a.m. You might be preparing food for your fellow crewmates. You might be cleaning the ship during what we call happy hour. You might be climbing the rigging. You might be, helming or navigating. It's getting people to do things they just, for the most part, would never have done before. And to do anything on these ships requires lots of pairs of hands. The tall ships were designed back in a day when labour was aplenty. There were lots of pairs of hands to do things. There are very few opportunities for so many people to come together and actually participate in a task. And the way we run the ship is to try and make sure everyone gets involved in everything and there's 100% participation.
And it's amazing how kind of close you become with people, and how you almost create your own little mini society in that time. You have your own kind of roles, you have your own, way that you treat each other and talk to each other, and it's bizarre. My mum said when she came to collect me from the boat, it was almost like it was like picking me up from school at the end of Christmas when I didn't want to go home from my friends. She said it was almost like I kind of looked at her like no one would ever understand what I'd been through apart from the people on the boat. And she said she could tell we'd had an amazing time.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's that abstraction, isn't it? Again, taking people from their routine, challenging them to do things they've never thought they would do, making them work as a team, going on an adventure. I mean, how many times do we really do that, during our lives? It's out in the ocean, ocean blue, as it were, crashing around, being exposed to the elements. Things like fatigue. You're on this sort of 4-watch routine, so you might be up at midnight or 4 a.m. It's incredibly immersive and all-encompassing, and I had the same experience whenever I do voyages. You kind of get to the end of it, and it's like, wow, what happened? It's like the end of an exam period, an end of term, the end of an adventure. So I can really relate to that.
How many voyages have you been on?
I've been on 3 voyages. So it's one of those funny things. I don't think I've ever done so little sailing since I became chief executive of the charity. I guess that's it's the way of the world sometimes. But I've been on 3 voyages and lots of day sails. So I guess one of the perks of doing the job that I do is I host lots of our partners and lots of our donors and supporters. But normally that's on day sails. So I've been up and down the River Thames probably more times than I can remember, and done lots of day trips on the Solent, but only a small number of voyages. And whenever we publish a program, I'm really jealous about all the things I'm missing out on. We've just got one of our ships returning back from Australia, and they're on an epic sort of 8-month adventure. They're just left Melbourne to go to Auckland. They're going from there round Cape Horn to the Falkland Islands, and Falkland Islands to Cape Town via South Georgia, and Cape Town to Antigua, and Antigua home. I mean, any one of those I think would be kind of the adventure of a lifetime.
That sounds amazing.
But sadly, I won't be on any of them, I don't think, which is a real shame. I'll be watching from afar.
Jealously,
very jealously, listening to all the wonderful cruise stories. And of course, when you're doing something like that as well, it's like the incredible wildlife. And to go and visit a place like South Georgia or the Falkland Islands that are, sites of outstanding natural beauty and with unique fauna and fungi to go and admire, it kind of makes it additionally special.
I think it's a really unusual job to be a crew on it as well. I remember talking to some of the crew members and just thinking, wow, what an incredible way to spend your days, just to do something like this and to have different people come aboard. And they were such an incredible crew because they knew exactly what they needed us to do. They were very forthright about it at times, but you need to be in a situation like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting job. I mean, because of the scale of our ships, these aren't your sort of average yachties. These are people who have got serious Master Mariner qualifications. They're, qualified to go and be on ships of an epic scale. The QE2, some of the big container ships. They have the equivalent tickets and qualifications to be operating on those vessels. And it's a unique drive, I think, that encourages most of them to do this. Not only do they want to work in a very niche part of the maritime environment, most big ships don't have sails on them, and certainly aren't run with such a diverse crew, or where the crew themselves have such an important role in delivering the overall experience. So they're a unique group, a very special group, and they're absolutely the heart of what we do. And we've got people at every stage of their career. We've got some great young professional crew members. We're trying to, take on a lifelong career pathway, and equally we're, fortunate to attract people at points further down their career path who are looking to maybe do something more charitable, do something a bit different, a little bit interesting. Maybe they're bored of just driving around a giant, great big cargo ship or a ferry or something like that. Fancy going to see the, South Pacific, or other interesting places where we go from time to time.
So what brought you to the Jubilee Sailing Trust? What's your kind of background?
Yeah, so I've got a business background. For many years I worked for an American company looking after worldwide sales and some of their international marketing as well. And as part of my professional development, they were a forward-thinking business, big company in the sort of human capital space. And they encouraged, as part of your executive development, to get some charitable experience and preferably some board-level experience. So I spoke to a couple of my mentors. This was probably 10, 12 years ago, sort of presenting them with this problem. I've been challenged to do this. Where on earth am I going to find these opportunities? And it just happened that one of my mentors had just joined the JST board as a trustee. He was chairman of the Finance and Audit Committee. And I'd never heard of the Jubilee Sailing Trust. He said, why don't you come along to one of their events? You can learn more about their work. You can meet some of the other trustees. So I did. And I guess the rest, as it were, is history. The organisation's changed quite a lot since then. And obviously I've changed roles. I'm now running the trust as chief executive versus a sort of voluntary member of the board. But that's where the whole journey started. I got particularly involved. I applied for the chief executive role just over 3 years ago because the trust needed to go through a process of refresh, renewal, refocus. Like any organisation, from time to time, you've got to look in the mirror and figure out who you want to be and to try and strengthen, especially if you're a charity, the impact you're providing to the public, and there was a great opportunity to provide some leadership during what I thought would be an exciting and challenging time. So I put my hat in the ring, and the rest, as I said, is history. So been chief executive for just over 3 years now.
During that 3 years, are there any sort of stories that have stuck with you of kind of voyages or experiences that you've had? Or...
Yeah, not all of them which I want to share publicly. No, I mean, one of the great things about running an organisation like this is the diversity of people who we support, the challenges and adventures that it throws up. If you throw in the weather and other variables into anything that you plan doing, it's created some quite challenging situations over the last 3 years. You need to be fairly light-footed running an organisation like this, because you never quite know what it's going to throw at you. But I'll set aside those sort of stories. I mean, I get to meet with people who really have had their lives changed by what we do. I remember one of the very first crew members I met. I'm sure he won't mind me referencing his name. That was Alex, and Alex has got pretty severe cerebral palsy. He's extremely restricted in his movement. He needs a lot of personal care and support. And I met him on my first day on the job. It was probably one of the days I remember most. And he'd just come off a voyage up from, I think they'd started down in Dartmouth or Falmouth, somewhere down in the West Country, and come into central London over 7 or 10 days. And, he was telling me with tremendous pride, his stories of helming the ship, his assisted climb. And I just will never forget him saying, never stop, when he said to me at the end, never stop doing what you're doing. It means a world of different people like me. And it was a very special afternoon, because we had the Countess of Wessex on board, who was visiting in a good capacity. And, she got to hear from Alex firsthand about his story and adventure. And, those sorts of things really do bring a tear to your eye. But I remember from my own voyage, I was buddied up with an incredible guy who, through a series of rather tragic accidents, lost most of the movement in his left side through a series of brain injuries. But he was a former rigger and derrick man who used to work on the big oil rigs off South Africa. And he never thought he would go to sea again. And even more, he was a derrickman, so they're the people who go up really high on the big drill bits, and they're kind of the aerial acrobats of the oil rigging world. So he never thought he would be up high again at sea, let alone at sea. And we had this very special moment where he and I went up to the first platform on the ship, and we watched sunset together. And it was a moist-eyed moment for both of us. He couldn't believe he would ever be up high again at sea, and it brought back lots of memories. We shared stories together about all sorts of times past and adventures. So there you go. Those are a couple.
That's lovely.
As well as meeting you, Emma, of course.
Oh, well, obviously.
we got thrown in the deep end together, but it's great. It's one of the great privileges I get to meet fantastic people day in, day out, and it's not just people with disabilities whose lives get impacted. It's everyone. I remember you were participating in a really fun project we did with Barclays, and I remember talking to one of their execs who said, "Do you know what? I won't feel embarrassed now when I'm on the tube standing next to someone in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And we feel so much better about who I am. I now feel confident interacting with people who are different to me, and you can't put a price on that. So it's a sort of powerful work that really does change people's attitudes, outlooks, and nearly always what we do is life enhancing, and quite often it's life changing as well.
What are you proudest of that the JST has achieved? I'm testing you here.
You told me you weren't going to ask me any difficult questions. Look, I think the heart of what we do is providing opportunity for around 3,000 people a year to go on the adventure of a lifetime. That I guess is what I'm most proud of day in and day out. But it's what happens after that as well, and it's quite hard to measure. But what we're doing is creating role models who can go back to their communities and through their own example demonstrate leadership. We live in a very polarized world and society, and the more people we've got out there trying to build bridges, bring people together, showcase what can be done when people come together as a community and try and achieve great things, the better we all are. And it's knowing, I think, that a lot of the people we work with really feel inspired and motivated by their experience and take that next step to actually go out and share that with their community, their friends, maybe challenge them from time to time about their own outlook, try and maybe take some of our inclusive values and culture back to the communities they're part of. I think that's a bit that gets me out of bed in the morning, and I guess to that extent it's the thing I'm most proud of. And then obviously as a leader of a great organisation, I'm extremely proud of my team. They work very, very hard and often under very challenging and fast-moving circumstances to do what they do, and often that requires tremendous imagination and creativity and commitment. So we're nothing without the team pulling together and working hard, and we've been very lucky to have some tremendous efforts and initiatives over the years that evidence that. So
what does the next year hold for the JST? Is there anything sort of exciting happening? Or
yeah, so one of the things we've been really focused on over the past few years is building partnerships with a whole raft of different organisations. Do a lot of work in partnership with other charities, some businesses like the Barclays Project I mentioned, schools, educational establishments, even a little bit of local government work now as well. And what we're finding is discussions with these other organisations are helping us dream up all sorts of exciting collaborations and projects. And we've got a few in the pipeline next year that I'll be pleased to share. We're going to be doing a project in the early part of the summer. It's in collaboration with 5 or 6 of the really big armed forces charities, Help for Heroes, SAFA, Walking with the Wounded, some of the names that many of your viewers would be familiar with. And we're going to be doing the largest scale event as part of the nation's World War I centenary commemorations. We'll be taking a fabulous crew of disadvantaged inner city cadets alongside injured service personnel around the UK, linking all 4 capital cities. And in each port there's going to be a big festival, there's going to be an act of remembrance, there's going to be lots of work with the local community, and it's going to start and finish in the Tower of London. We're going to be part of the Edinburgh Tattoo. There's all sorts of fun things happening as we go around the country, but that's a really exciting initiative, and the former head of the British Army, Lord Dannett's put his name to it, so it's the Lord Dannett Round Britain Challenge. We're doing another, to capture the imagination, we're working with Sir Richard Stilgoe, the famous musical composer, and a charity very close to his heart called Orpheus, which is a residential centre for young adults with more severe disabilities, helping to prepare them for independent living. We're working with them and a network of other, mainly youth and disability-focused charities, to produce a voyage called Songs of the Sea.
Wow.
Under Sir Richard's tutelage. The crew are going to compose, rehearse and prepare to stage a musical that will then be put on arrival in port in Portsmouth.
That sounds amazing.
Well, come and be part of it. We're trying to get a group. I think it's going to be absolutely brilliant. And I've no idea how this is going to work. I think we're going to have to shift the format a bit. So it'll run a bit more like a series of day sails with plenty of time for musical activity in the evening. But You should have seen the expression on my permanent crew's face when I said we're going to need a drum kit on board. the requirements for the trip.
Wow.
So, and then we're talking to the Special Olympics about doing an exciting project with them around their World Games, which would be early in 2019. The end of next year in 2018 marks the start of our 40th anniversary. So we've got quite a few shore-based events. We're getting both our ships together for the first time in 3 years in the autumn. And whenever we do that, we do what we call the Battle of the Barks, the bark being the type of ship that we have. So that's always quite fun. We'll do a little bit of match racing on that. And then lots of other sort of smaller projects with a very wide range of charities and other partners. We're continuing to do the project with Barclays on a slightly smaller scale next year. So, lots of exciting things. But I think those two are the highlights.
Sounds really good. Sounds really, really exciting. Thank you so much, Duncan. I really appreciate you speaking to me.
Not at all, Emma. Thank you for everything you do as well. You're a great inspiration to us all, and thank you for everything you're doing to try and, I think, inject positivity and awareness in, people that you meet. You really are a true inspiration. So it's a great pleasure to have the chance to talk to you, and thank you for inviting me to be part of your blog.
No problem. It wouldn't be a blog without you and your colourful trousers.
I can show everyone the pink trousers, can I?
Yeah, go for it.
There we go. I can just about get my leg up.
I'm now challenging Duncan nowadays to the colourful trouser wars. I've got probably about 6 pairs now, so doing quite well. I still won't beat you though. I bet you've got more than 6 pairs.
That's all your viewers need to know is that if in doubt, wear a colourful trouser.